We will call the Monday, April 8th, 2024 Juvenile Detention Center Board meeting to order. Sheila, if you will call the roll, please.
Mr. Chris Johnson, Dr. Anita Herron, Superintendent William Cope is out today. Dr. Michael E. McDonald. Here. Ms. Claire Maxwell. Here. Judge Steve Daniel. Here. Mayor Joe Carr.
Here. Thank you. Vice Chair Daniel, have you had an opportunity to review the minutes of the previous meeting?
I have, and find them to reasonably reflect the proceedings.
Thank you. There is one clerical change that Sheila's making. It was a typo. It should say 2024 instead of 2023. But having said that, is there a second? Second. We have 2 seconds. So Ms. Maxwell would be your second. Tie goes to the lady. All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Movement stand approved. Do we have anybody for public comments? I don't think so, correct?
No, sir.
Thank
we
you.
do not.
Okay. Ms. Duke, item 4, open positions, please.
So in the past, we have just been reporting on our actual open positions, and I wanted to throw in a little bit of extra information just for a big picture information. So we currently have 2 open full-time male positions, and those are the only open positions we have of this moment. But I did want to discuss some of the other things that will cause for the department to have to regularly use our on-call staff. We currently have 1 employee who is out on an FMLA leave. We have 3 employees who are out on what's known as an intermittent FMLA, and we have 1 employee who is out currently on a leave of absence. So although we are getting lots of interviews in and we're making offers to potential new hires, even when fingers crossed we get our positions filled, we do still have some of these other issues that we deal with on the regular, and I just kind of want to bring those to everyone's attention as we move forward, just so you can kind of understand about our staffing.
Thank you, Ms. Duke. Any questions for Ms. Duke regarding open positions? And seeing none, if not without objection, if there's no objection, we'll approve. Item 5, Ms. Duke, data report, please, ma'am.
So as of this morning, when we populated this report, we had 11 young people in the facility. 7 of those are from Rutherford County. We have 1 youth each from Henderson, Lincoln, Tipton, and Wilson, with their age, charges, and court dates listed on your form.
Any questions for Ms. Duke regarding the data report? Seeing none, and if there is no objection, we'll approve. Thank you. Educational Services Report, item number 6, please.
We have the March educational report in front of you. It's nothing in there that I think is particularly of interest. We did have 1 holiday in March, but beyond that, everyone is attending what is best suited to their individual needs.
Any questions or comments about the education report? And we can kind of pause here for a second so everybody can review if that's like. All right. Yes, Vice Chair Daniel, you're recognized. I knew if I waited long enough, somebody would see something that would have a question. That's excellent. Go ahead.
I want to go back to the population report just a second.
Without objection, we'll go back to the population report, which was the previous item on the agenda.
I'm sorry, I'm a little slow.
That's quite all right.
Going over these.
We're not.
The last entry there, domestic assault, disorderly conduct. I doubt that any of those meet the SOP for our facility. But is this as a result of the action of the Wilson County officials, and we're simply complying with our contract?
Yes, if they are not listed as a Rutherford County youth, these other 4 young people have gone to their individual counties in front of a either judge or magistrate or referee, which however they call it in their county, and have been court ordered to be detained for X amount of time in a juvenile detention facility. When these counties call to ask if we have space for a male or female with the listed charges, if we do have a bed available, we tell them that we have to go over a questionnaire as to whether they are just in general suited to our facility, and then we require a court order from their judge signed stating that they are to be detained in detention, and that we also have some medical information that comes along with them. So this particular young person that you're questioning may have in that county additional court history that caused this particular judge to necessitate a court order for detainment. Our court order simply states that they are to be detained, and he or she met all of the other requirements to be held.
So if this is an illegal detention, the position that we take is that that's the responsibility of the committing judge.
That's correct. I've had this conversation with Nick Christensen, the Rutherford County attorney, and I have told him that I don't think that it is my position to want or need to understand every juvenile that judges in their respective counties. I don't need to know their entire court history. I trust that those judges are capable of making that decision for the youth in their county, and if they meet our requirements for detainment per contract and we are able to, then we accept that child.
Well, back to my former assertion, we're relying on whoever signed that committing order. If these people's charges don't rise to meeting state law for confinement, we're saying we're not responsible. We're only doing what they ordered us to do, and that's the reliance that we have on having them detained in our facility.
There is a monitoring agency that comes by monthly who goes through all of the youth that are booked in and detained from every county, and that monitoring agency is not the Tennessee State Department of Children's Services. They are separate and apart from that agency, and in the event that the child does not meet deinstitutionalization of status offenders criteria, then those audit charges go back to the county from which the child came from.
Here's the only question I have in that context. We're the county that's holding them, and so we may have exposure in that situation. I'm just bringing that to your attention. My thought process is that our SOP is trying to protect our county from responsibility for improperly incarcerating someone, and this might be a problem. It's worthy of having a legal opinion from our county attorney on.
I would like to chime in for just a second, picking up on what Judge Daniel said. Lynn, help me out here. So just to recap, it is the position of our county attorney and the county that the controlling authority about who and why an adolescent is to be incarcerated in our facility is with the presiding judge. Is that correct?
We ultimately can decide to refuse to accept any child from any of the counties that we contract with for any reason.
Excellent. Okay, because you did a great job of predicting my next question, so thank you. I guess where I'm going, if that is the case, I don't know if Judge Daniel is going in this direction or not, but in those instances where we may have improperly, by somebody else's determination, another judge or court, incarcerated a child from outside the county, is the county at legal risk for following the orders of another judge in another county? You see what I'm saying? What is our legal exposure here?
So the conversation that I had with Mr. Christensen, we both agreed that it was not proper to detain, even if the other counties were asking us to do so, any status offenders. But because the TCA code doesn't just say felony charges with proper court history and other items that judges have discretion over via juvenile court information, misdemeanors may be appropriately held. And so just because it is not a felony, that it's only a misdemeanor, does not mean that it is an improper hold. If this board or the county attorney wants to move forward and change that up, we can always do that.
No, I'm certainly not, and I don't think Judge Daniel is saying that at this point either, and I don't want to speak for him, but what I'm saying is to the extent that the county has some exposure here, I think it would be in our interest, this board's interest, to be able to quantify or understand that exposure. So we could give you the necessary guidance for you to make the best decision on behalf of the county and the child. And so I guess at this point what I'm going to suggest is that Judge Daniel, that we probably need to invite Mr. Christensen to our next meeting, and so we can probably ask some more greater detailed questions and maybe get some guidance in this regard. Your thoughts on that, please, sir?
Well, I think that would be a good idea, particularly in relationship to the SOP we worked so hard to put in place a way to screen these things out such that we don't run afoul of this Tennessee state statute by housing or incarcerating someone. I'm very concerned about trying to justify that detention based on somebody else's determination. And
well, my point in this is I want to make sure that Ms. Duke and her staff receive the full protection of this board in this regard, because it would appear that the law may be a little vague or ambiguous here, and I think maybe some clarity might be helpful, at least from my standpoint, and that's to help. Honestly, Lynn, this is to help you, because we don't want to retrace our steps even if they were inadvertent, if that makes sense.
We're totally on board with having Nick come in and have an explanation.
Yeah, and maybe all we need is an explanation about how the law currently works. I'm sure there's a bit of ignorance on the part of the chair's part in this regard, but I think unless there is some objection from the board about having Nick come and explain this, I will ask.
And I would want
Please.
to point out that the explanation should be in addition to what the statute says, to what our procedural rules that we've adopted,
Yes.
because both are ways in which we can be criticized.
I concur. Ms. Duke, will you communicate with Mr. Christensen, and obviously he can pull the videotape of this discussion if he needs context, and he can absolutely reach out to me as well.
Absolutely.
But we'll try to schedule him for the next appointment.
Okay,
or
sounds
next board
good.
meeting. Judge Daniel, thank you for that very much. Are there any other questions? We kind of took a step back. Yes, Johnson.
I'm in response to Judge Daniel's inquiry. I'm wondering, Ms. Duke, how many of these, the ones that are currently being held, are repeats that had a lesser charge, and now, have a first-degree murder charge, or it was a misdemeanor and now has been elevated because they were released and then now they're back. Maybe that may be one of the questions we ask.
So I don't have the specific stats in front of me, and honestly, we have just recently switched over to a new software system to begin to be able to, when asked, have much better ability to provide statistics to this board or any of the other boards that we go in front of. But I can tell you that although it does happen that the first charge that a young person may have could potentially be something like a first-degree murder, that more often than not, these are young people who have had issues with truancy and unruly and work their way up until they become, unfortunately, confident that they can continue to commit crimes. And when they move around from different counties, it's sometimes hard to keep up with everyone's background, but remember that as far as Rutherford County young folks are concerned, we have, before they are detained, their information and their court histories here in Rutherford County are being reviewed by the judge and or his magistrates, and I suspect that just based on 30 years of doing it, that we're either getting the same process from other counties and or lead youth services officers who have dealt with these families for some time. So the majority of these kids do have a previous history, but not all of them. We do have some that will just make one horrible decision and act, and then they have the consequences of that.
I appreciate that. I guess I'm looking at our education report, and then looking at if the kid was in there with a misdemeanor or lesser charge, just kind of analyzing what we can do to impact them in a way they're not back with a more extreme charge.
So Rutherford County youth will only be detained unless they have a serious court history when they have been charged with new felonies. So what you're talking about is young people who are coming from other counties. And one of the things that you might recall from the tour that you took and some of the information that I passed out in your binders in the beginning, we have various programs. We have on staff chaplain, and our education department loves and pours into these kids opportunities and resources, and have quality volunteers that come in to do just what you're talking about. And I am hopeful when we get to the brief information that I'm going to give on the employee recognition, actually I am hopeful if we're going to have at the next April 11th meeting, they're going to do a JDC spotlight, and I'm going to have some of those employees. These meetings, they have heard me and they hear me every month, and I really want them to hear from my employees who are making that impact and who are pouring into these kids. So I'm hopeful to be able to give the majority of my 3 minutes to share about my department from the people that y'all would really like to hear from, and the ones who are for doing the good work and the boots on the grounds that are eyeballing these kids daily and providing those services.
I'm sorry, you said April the 11th meeting, and what meeting is that?
We talked, well, do we need to, should we go ahead since it's on here?
Well,
or-
no, that's item 7 on our agenda, and if Judge Daniel, if that's okay, can we get to that till we get through the educational services report? Are there any questions regarding the data report and item number 5 and the educational services report, item 6? If there are no additional questions or comments, we'll accept those. Now we are to the employee recognition, item 7, the April 11th, 6 p.m. Ms. Duke?
Okay, so obviously, y'all remember that you worked very hard on the juvenile detention, employee recognition, and letter of commendation. You'll recall that as soon as we got the a letter of recognition like we wanted it, we immediately shared that with all of our employees individually via email. We posted it in the break rooms and put copies in their mailboxes. The recognition for them as a group, you all wanted that to go in front of the full commission. I have spoken with Rachel, who works on the full commission agenda. She knows that unless something changes, so that's going to be this Thursday, to have that information and that recognition ready and prepared for Thursday night. And I had also been reached out to by the vice chair of that committee because the county is doing a get to know your department's informational 3 minutes, give us all you've got at the beginning. And so I thought it would be a good time while we were doing our recognition and they were wanting to do the get to know your department heads. Like I said, I am hopeful that they will allow me a little bit of latitude and, as I said, allow some of my folks who work the closest and pour into the kids the day after day and work with them on a plethora of goals and making better choices to come up and just give as much information as they can about what they've been doing in that 3 minutes. So all of that's going to be happening unless something changes this Thursday, which is April the 11th at 6.
I would assume Captain Cesar will be leading the parade in that regard. Is that
He is.
correct, Ms. Duke?
Yes, he is.
Outstanding response on your part and affirmation from Captain Cesar. Thank you, Captain.
You're welcome.
I know you're excited. Ms. Maxwell, you're
I'm
recognized.
assuming this will be held over at the Juvenile Detention Center, or where will
No,
it?
the full commission is when all 21 commissioners
Oh, here, okay, I'm so
come
sorry,
here, and they have a full agenda,
Yes.
but this will be at the very beginning.
Familiar with that. I missed that part, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, this is for County Commission this Thursday night, starting at 6 o'clock. I would encourage you to be here if you can. So, anything else on item 7, the employee recognition? Excellent. All right. Without objection, we'll go to item 8, our 24-25 budget review. So there's something missing off the budget, but that is by design, and that is salaries, taxes related to salaries, pension, and those kind of things. Michael Smith, when Ms. Duke presents her budget to the mayor's office, she does that along with Mr. Smith, the finance director, but he literally plugs in those numbers the day before the meeting. because of some updates that need to come from Sonia Stevenson, HR Director. And so that's the only thing that is missing. So if you see that number compared to 24, 25 proposed, it is on your sheet, the last item. It is $649,808, and as you can see, the 23-24 original budget was $3,355,101. The discrepancy is salaries. Salaries and related costs associated with salaries is not included in this budget.
And I have...
And that's by design, because that comes from Michael Smith.
We have our scheduled meeting, or the department has our scheduled meeting with the mayor and finance director this Wednesday.
Judge Daniel, you're recognized.
Initially, Lynn sent out documents, and I appreciate that, with the budget information on it, and it was pretty long. And I tried to print it, and my printer comes back with just very small print because of the, but anyway, there are, actually what I got and what I finally figured out includes not only the budget for the court is a separate numbers, then there's the probation services.
Oh, I understand. So
Then there's also the jail. And so when we get to the following back of it, then I found out that I've been able to quantitate what's associated with just the detention center. And then today, of course, this is blown up, which is much easier to read, and I appreciate that, and so do my eyes. But the sort of the question that I had is, and you've got highlighted, and you probably just explained it. It says attendance, and I assume those are the people who are guards or attending to the care of the residents. Is that right?
So the general ledger account line item numbers are state generated. We do not generate these within the county. And so at the time, and probably still, the state did not have a line item called juvenile detention officers. So in '93, when we opened, we went with the closest description thereto, which was called attendance. And so in our attendance line item, which is 164, there currently today is 19 full-time detention officers, and I would like to add 1 full-time detention officer. However, it's going to be a overall less salary number because I have an employee in the line above it, 161, who is going to be retiring, and instead of filling that position, I'm asking to add a detention officer, and we're going to divide the current responsibilities of our retiring employee. Hopefully, if I can, and this is just my request, this may not come to be, but my request would be to take that employee's responsibility and divide them onto many other people and try to add a detention officer, which we desperately need, but do it in such a way that it doesn't require as many taxpayer dollars.
It's a net reduction of 1 employee.
Yes. Well, okay.
No, it would be net neutral.
Yes, of an employee, but it would be a cheaper employee.
It'd be $1 savings, but a net neutral in body count.
Yes, correct.
Dr. McDonald, you're recognized.
quick question on page 2 of the budget. I believe it's 1, 2, 3 items from the bottom dealing with data processing equipment. Please forgive me if I'm not clear on this, but it says end-of-life issues. Is that related to the system itself?
Yes, this particular system is an analog system. I presented this I actually have began presenting this request when Mayor Ketron was still here. And we are rolling the dice. The system is working today. I hope the system works 3 years from now, but that system is at its and forgive me because I am not a technical person, and all of the OIT people watching right now are laughing. But it is not, it's at its end of life. We desperately need to move to digital.
Ms. Duke, if you're telling us it's analog, you've already said how old the system is.
Yeah, that was...
It's very, very old.
Right, that kind of gave me a little clarity, but
Yeah,
I just want to make sure we
clarity when
weren't...
you say analog.
Right, I just want to make sure we weren't talking about life insurance or something here.
No,
That's all.
sir.
The question I have, have you contacted Alyssa, who does community development for grants, about a potential of finding a grant that would cover this?
I have not. This is part of, and I'm almost scared to say this. This might be part of a
Proprietary?
Yes, yes. And so I don't know how that would work, but OIT has been on board with this. They know what I'm asking for and why I'm asking for it. And actually Wednesday when we have our meeting, I'm bringing my tech guy with me who can talk about it better than I can.
No, that's fine. I guess what I'm saying is this is an important request, and it's, while I haven't done her budget yet, this is a request that I'm inclined to take a serious look at as the mayor presents his budget to the full county commission. Having said that, I do want to, I'm probably going to reach out to Alyssa to see to what extent federal grant money is available, given the proprietary nature of this system.
Okay, awesome. Wonderful.
Any other questions on the budget? Judge Daniel, we're gonna vote on this, by the way, as a roll call vote. Just it's that important, and we're dealing with money. So, Judge Daniel.
The legislature is in session, is continuing to crank out legislation that affects juveniles. I wondered, will we get a report from our legislative liaison committee on what we should consider as impacts to this budget in time? If we vote on it today, vote on the budget today, will we be taking into consideration what we need to take in consideration as a result of this legislative session?
So the role of this body would be to recommend or not recommend this budget for the mayor to approve. It's the county's commission. They're the final authority in approving the budget. The recommendation of this board carries significant weight. So for you to recommend or not recommend is not just a rubber stamp, but it's the fact that, just like we've demonstrated in this meeting, that we've reviewed the budget and we find it acceptable and appropriate for the needs of the department. We do have, the county does have a lobbyist, Will Denami, who represents the county's interest on a myriad of affairs, and I'm sure he will give, once they sine die, he will give the county commission a report on those pieces of legislation that affect the county, and to the extent that any of that legislation is germane to this board, I can probably get him to give a summary of that as well, if that answers your question.
I think you have, because even though we recommended if there's something on down the line, then the county commission would have the responsibility of trying to update this.
That is correct.
It.
That is absolutely correct. Any further questions or comments about the budget? Seeing none, I'm going to request that we do a roll call vote, and this is a vote to recommend or not recommend. So, Ms. Todd, if you will record the vote as yes to recommend or no not to recommend that we take this, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Hold just a second. Dr. McDonald, did you have a question?
Do we need a motion?
We do. Thank you very much. So can we have a motion on the
I
budget?
move. I so move.
We have a motion by Dr. McDonald.
Second.
And a second. Thank you for that parliamentary procedure. Thank you very much. Now you can take, without objection, we'll take the roll.
Chris Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Anita Herron? Yes. Dr. Michael McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Claire Maxwell?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Now we're on to other business. So I have one piece of other business, but before I get to that, let me recognize the committee or the board if they have anything. What I want to make a suggestion for us to consider. From a practical standpoint, I don't like sitting up here, if you want to know the truth about it. And so I know several of the committees and the boards have moved to room 205. There's plenty of space in there, and so I wanted to present that option to the board, to moving our meetings to room 205, which is adjacent to the County Commission Courthouse, and I wanted to get your input on that. Judge Daniel.
One thing that I've thought was one of the most important things about this board being created is to make it open to the public.
Indeed.
And to have public input. I've been sorely disappointed in the fact that in the entire time that I have served on the board, there has been no public comment.
Very little.
And if the 205 affords that, I'm not objectionable to it.
So that's an excellent question, because I thought the same thing. I had the same reaction. But there are approximately 25 theater seats that are in the room 205, along with the dozen conference room chairs that sit around the conference room table. The facility is fully equipped to record audio and video, which is a requirement for this board. So nothing changes from a technical aspect or for the purposes of having public comments and people coming to attend in any way. To the extent that it restricted that, then obviously we could move back in here. It's just that from a functioning standpoint, I like being over there. It's just a personal preference of the chair. That's all it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's nothing other than that, and that's why I bring it to your attention. This is certainly nothing extremely important, but just a. Dr. McDonald, did you have something you wanted to say? I thought you were reaching for your microphone. My apologies.
I was just going to echo what Judge Daniel had identified. I mean, whatever will help facilitate greater transparency and openness for the public and our ability to function and communicate. Whichever one facilitates that, I'm good either way.
I will say this: the theater chairs. If you haven't had a chance, you ought to go look. The theater chair is sitting is in close proximity to the conference table. I don't believe, quite honestly, we've got a security concern. I could be wrong, but we haven't had one yet. Ms. Duke, have you guys thought about maybe moving to 205, and if that would create any logistical problems?
I prefer 205. It's more personable
Yeah.
and conducive to greater discussion, in my opinion.
And to be quite honest with you, if somebody wants to speak or address the committee or the board, sometimes getting behind a podium and a microphone can be just a little intimidating for some, whereas if they're in there, we just make a seat available to come to sit at the conference room table and address the board without the microphone and the lights and those kind of things. So it's a little more relaxed. But again, I'm at the will of the board here. I just think, like Ms. Duke, it's a little more personal and we still get the job done. Ms. Maxwell,
Do
you're
you
recognized.
want to settle that today?
I don't have to. No,
Okay.
it's under other business. So,
Okay.
Absolutely not. So I tell you what, let's do this. We'll put it on the agenda for next time. When
Okay.
you guys walk out, why don't you just walk over to 205 and just get an appraisal? This isn't anything we have to do at all. Again, I'm just trying to create an atmosphere, as Judge Daniel intimated, that facilitates more public participation. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not sure it'll be effective, but I think it wouldn't hurt. We will put that on next month's agenda, and if there are no further questions or comments, and if there is none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.